Look at this faded flannel shirt. To my son-in-law, Julian, this shirt meant I was nothing. It meant I was a retired, penniless old man who didn't deserve to breathe the same air as his high society family. That's why his mother slid a thick white envelope across the table at a five-star restaurant, looking at me like I was a stray dog. $50,000, she whispered. Take it. Move to another state and stay away from our lives. Julian adjusted his Rolex, smirked, and called me an embarrassment. He thought he was the king of the world because he'd just been named CEO of Zenith Horizon. What he didn't know was that I built that multi-billion-dollar empire from the ground up. And in exactly 2 minutes, I was going to strip him of absolutely everything. My name is Marcus. I'm 59 years old. For the last 10 years, my life has looked the same every single day. I wake up in a modest 2-bedroom house, brew cheap coffee, and drive a dented 2012 Ford Focus with a fan belt that squeals like it's dying. If you passed me on the street, you'd think retired blue-collar worker, paycheck to paycheck, nothing more. And honestly, I liked it that way. After my wife died, the mansions and the sports cars felt hollow. I wanted peace. More than anything, I wanted to protect my daughter, Jocelyn. She is my entire world. When she met Julian Sterling 3 years ago, I made a decision. I hid who I really was. I've watched what money does to people. It attracts parasites. It breeds fake love. I wanted Julian to love my daughter for who she is, not for the size of her inheritance. So I played the part, struggling, proud, aging dad. Meanwhile, an anonymous board ran the day-to-day of my company, Zenith Horizon, while I stayed completely out of the spotlight. For 2 years, Julian behaved. He worked as a mid-level manager at my company, ironic, considering what came next, and he seemed to genuinely adore Jocelyn. I even quietly used my influence to fast-track his career, thinking I was helping build a good life for my daughter. But power is a drug, and some men can't survive even a taste of it. The moment the board handed him the CEO title, the mask didn't slip. It shattered. Within weeks, he'd bought a penthouse and hired a private driver, and he started treating my daughter like a tenant in her own marriage. Then he turned on me. At family dinners, he mocked my worn clothes, my dented car, made little jabs about men who lacked the drive for real luxury. I stayed quiet for Jocelyn's sake. But every insult was another nail in the coffin he was building for himself, and he had no idea how close it was to closing. It started small and turned vicious fast. At a Sunday brunch Jocelyn begged me to attend, Julian showed up late in a tailored Italian suit, looked at my jacket like it offended him personally, and announced, loud enough for nearby tables to hear, that he'd have his assistant send me a gift card. Because it was getting awkward being seen with someone who looked like they rode the city bus. Jocelyn's face went red. "Dad, stop it," she said. He just laughed and waved her off. I felt the heat rise in my chest. I forced a smile instead. I wanted to see exactly who this man became when he thought no one could touch him. I didn't know yet how far he'd take it. Behind closed doors, it was worse. Jocelyn started calling me late at night, crying. Julian was controlling every account, cutting her off from money that was rightfully hers. Telling her a high society wife needed to learn her place and stop embarrassing him with her middle-class habits. He told her to stop inviting me to the penthouse. My old Ford, he said, leaked oil on his driveway. Then his parents flew in, Preston and Beatrice Sterling. Old money, the kind that treats anyone without a trust fund as something to be scraped off a shoe. Julian absorbed every ounce of their contempt like it was oxygen. The following weekend was Jocelyn's birthday. I'd saved up, staying in character, and bought her a hand-carved wooden jewelry box, the kind her mother used to own. Julian didn't even let her open it. He snatched it from my hands, tossed it on the counter, and said, "Thanks for the kindling, Marcus. Next time, don't bother. I bought her a diamond necklace worth more than your entire net worth. Your arts and crafts don't fit the decor here." Jocelyn ran to the bedroom in tears. I stepped up to him and said, "Wealth isn't what's in your bank account, Julian, it's character. And right now you're bankrupt." He just laughed in my face. "Keep telling yourself that on the drive home in your piece of junk." The next day, an envelope arrived by mail. A formal printed invitation, dinner at Louis, the most exclusive French restaurant downtown. From Julian, Preston, and Beatrice. No Jocelyn, just me. The note read, "We need to have a serious discussion about the future of our family dynamic. I knew immediately it wasn't dinner. It was an ambush. I spent the day before reviewing Zenith Horizon's latest filings. As the sole owner, I had access to everything, even though the public only knew the name of our chairman, Thomas Hawthorne. And there it was. Julian had been quietly funneling corporate money into his own lifestyle, betting no one would check a brand new CEO's receipts. He thought he was untouchable. Tuesday evening, I wore my oldest jacket and pulled my dented Focus right up to the valet stand. The attendant looked at it like a hazard. I handed him $20 and walked in with my head up. In the private booth sat Julian, Preston, and Beatrice, looking like royalty holding court until they saw me. The smiles vanished. Cold, upturned noses replaced them. Through the appetizers, it was a master class in condescension. Preston went on about the family's real estate holdings. Beatrice made pointed remarks about the appalling lack of ambition in the working class. Julian just smirked and swirled his wine, saying nothing to defend his own wife's father. Then the main course arrived, and so did the reason for the invitation. Julian leaned forward. The temperature in the room dropped. "Marcus," he said, dripping condescension, "let's skip the pleasantries. Jocelyn deserves a certain lifestyle now that I'm at the top. Frankly, you're an embarrassment to my new status." I kept my face flat. An embarrassment, how so? Preston jumped in, palms smacking the table lightly. "Look at you. You walk into a Michelin star restaurant looking like a mechanic. Our family has a reputation. Julian runs with billionaires and politicians now. We can't have a father-in-law who looks like a beggar in the shadows." That's when Beatrice reached into her handbag and slid a thick white envelope across the tablecloth until it stopped at my water glass. $50,000, she said, eyes narrowing. "Take it. Buy a small house somewhere far away. Out of sight, out of mind. Cut ties with Jocelyn. Stay away from our lives permanently. We won't have a penniless old man ruining our family name." I looked at the envelope, then at Julian, my own son-in-law, a man I had secretly helped rise to the top of my own company. Nodding along with his parents like this was reasonable. "You really want me gone, Julian? After everything? After how happy I've made Jocelyn?" He leaned back, supremely confident. "It's just business, Marcus. You don't belong in our world. Accept reality. Take the cash and vanish. You're outclassed." That was the line, the one that ended it. The frail old man I'd been pretending to be for years disappeared in that instant. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't move fast. A cold, quiet smile spread across my face instead, and something in my eyes made all three of them flinch. "You think $50,000 buys a man's family, Beatrice?" I asked, my voice shifting from gentle to something none of them had heard from me before. Julian laughed, nervous now, the smirk cracking. "Don't get dramatic. Take the deal. I run the biggest company in this city. I hold every card. You don't hold anything, Julian," I said. "You're a tenant in a house you didn't build." I reached into my flannel shirt pocket and pulled out my phone. I set it face up in the center of the table and turned the volume all the way up. Julian's parents exchanged confused looks. "Who are you calling?" Julian scoffed. "The police?" "A taxi. Don't make a scene." I dialed a number that bypassed every secretary and every security layer at Zenith Horizon headquarters. It picked up before a single ring finished. "Sir, is everything all right?" The voice was sharp, professional, instantly recognizable to Julian, because it was a voice he heard every week in executive meetings, a voice that held total authority over his career. "Thomas Hawthorne, chairman of the board." Julian froze. His whole body went rigid. "Thomas," I said, leaning back, arms crossed. "I'm having dinner with our new CEO, Julian Sterling, and I've reached a definitive conclusion about his future with this company." Julian's jaw dropped. He stared at the phone, then at me, color draining from his face. "Is there an issue with Mr. Sterling's performance?" Thomas asked, deadly serious. "Terminate Julian Sterling's contract as CEO, effective immediately," I said. "Freeze all of his stock options pending a full audit of his recent expenditures. Have security clear his desk and escort him out tonight." The booth went dead silent. Preston sputtered, What kind of prank is this? Julian, who is this old lunatic talking to?" But Julian couldn't speak. He knew exactly who Thomas Hawthorne was. And more than that, he knew Hawthorne answered to only one person, the founder who held 100% of the company's voting shares. "Understood, sir," Thomas said without a beat of hesitation. I'll handle the termination personally and start the forensic audit immediately. The board will know within the hour. Anything else? That's all, Thomas. Thank you. I ended the call and slid the phone back into my pocket. Julian was shaking, knuckles white against the edge of the table. What is this? He stammered, all that confidence gone. Marcus, how do you know the chairman? What did you just do? I stood, and for the first time I didn't look like a tired old man. I looked like exactly what I was, the founder of a global company. It's not a joke, Julian, I said, looking down at him. You wanted to see how a poor man gets treated by a high society family. Now you get to find out from the other side. You're fired. Preston shot up, trying to look intimidating. Do you know who we are? You can't just fire my son. He's the CEO. I turned to him. Your son was the CEO of my company. A company I founded before he was in diapers. I promoted him to see if he had the integrity to take care of my daughter. Instead, you taught him that wealth means stepping on people. You taught him wrong. Beatrice looked like she might faint, staring between me and the envelope still sitting on the table. I picked it up and dropped it in Julian's lap. Keep it, I told him. You're going to need every dollar for your legal defense once the auditors finish going through your corporate card statements. Enjoy your dinner. I walked out while Preston shouted questions Julian couldn't answer, and Julian frantically tried redialing a chairman who would never take his call again. The valet handed me back my keys. The fan belt squealed the whole drive home, and for the first time it sounded like victory. But the story wasn't finished. The next morning brought the twist Julian never saw coming. When I got home, Jocelyn was waiting on the porch. She wasn't crying anymore. She looked resolute, holding a manila folder in both hands. It turned out she'd known something was wrong for weeks. She'd filed for divorce the day before that dinner. And quietly, from his own home office computer, she'd been documenting Julian's misconduct, the exact evidence my audit team needed to prove he'd been siphoning company funds to bankroll his parents' lifestyle. Julian didn't just lose his job that night. He lost his wife, his penthouse, and his name in every room that had once opened for him. Within 3 months, the forensic audit confirmed he'd misused more than $400,000 in company funds, facing public disgrace and possible prison time. His parents, the same people who'd once slid an envelope across a table like they owned the world, walked away and refused to spend a cent bailing him out. Julian thought a faded shirt and a dented car told him everything he needed to know about a man's worth. He learned the hardest way there is, that real power doesn't need to shout, doesn't need a Rolex, and never needs to humiliate anyone to prove it exists. Karma has a way of balancing the scale exactly when you least expect it, and arrogance always costs more than anyone can afford to pay.